Hey everybody, this is Joe. We're talking about Marvel Multiverse, and we are going to be talking about how to run the Hand Ninja. Here we go. So I haven't done one of these in a little while, and I want to get back to doing them. But this is Villain Support, where we take a look at an officially published stat block for a villain and talk about how it's designed, how to run it, and how to build them into a story and have them support the story that you are playing in your game. Today we're looking at the basic foot soldier of the stat blocks, the Hand Ninja. This is a rank 1 villain that we are going to be able to throw at our heroes right away. Let's start with the basic stat block. So the Hand Ninja has actually a very nice distribution of scores, nothing negative and nothing very high. 1 point in melee, 2 points in agility, 0 in resilience, 1 in vigilance, 1 in ego, nothing in logic. This gives them pretty basic defense scores, but nothing that's really punishing that your heroes can exploit. This also means that they have 30 points of focus and only 10 points of health with a +1 to their initiative roll. And now let's deal with that focus part first, because it's actually quite weird. Having 1 point in your vigilance gives you 30 points of focus. The smallest number of health that anybody can have, including NPCs, is 10, even if you have a 0 in resilience, which is why the Hand Ninja has a 10 health, even though they have no points in their resilience score. This means that the Hand Ninja, and we're going to explore this when we get to combat, they go down in combat really fast, which is actually maybe a nice feature for running this as a villain at very entry-level ranks and games, but it means that they just do not scale with the characters, which is fine. It's the 30 points of focus that's actually quite weird. A rank 1 character gets 4 powers, and the same is absolutely true for the Hand Ninja. They have 4 powers. All of them are combat powers. They have no utility, they have no support, and they have no mobility powers. All combat. 3 are melee, 1 is ranged. Here are their powers: fast attacks, attack stance, fast strikes, and snap shooting. Here's the weird thing about these powers. None of them cost focus. This is a character that has 30 points of focus and nothing to spend it on. Nothing at all. They can use all these powers all day without difficulty. So I'm not really sure what this 30 points of focus is really supposed to be there for, other than perhaps being a byproduct because the game designers wanted this villain to have a little bit of a bonus to their initiative rolls, since initiative is rolled using vigilance in this game rather than another stat. With that in mind, let's get into combat tactics. We have 3 melee abilities and 1 ranged ability. The ranged ability is actually going to be the most interesting, so we're going to save that for just a second. Of the melee abilities, none of them are huge hits against a single character. They are all really about splitting small hits against multiple enemies. Fast attacks and fast strikes both allow the character to split the attack against 2 different enemies with different effects. And so what we really get out of this character when we look at the melee version of them is a character that wants to surround a group of heroes and start splitting attacks among all of them, wildly hitting as many of your player characters as possible. So this is kind of a flash mob in a way. They are going to jump the heroes and try to win combat very, very quickly, which means they want to attack from hiding. So let's get into the idea of hiding. They're supposed to be hand ninjas, it's in the name, and so them hiding in the shadows or behind objects or concealed in ways makes total sense. And I think that this is absolutely the way that you want to run them as villains in your game. And it leads us to talking about attack stance. This is a power that I haven't really had a lot of good things to say about previously. It's very difficult to use, I have found, for player characters because it takes an action to get into. In case you haven't looked at it or don't remember, attack stance is going to double your melee agility score bonus for damage with your melee strikes, but it takes an action to get into your attack stance. If you want to use this, it's actually quite difficult because it wastes essentially your first full round of combat. but I think the hand is actually a really great stat block to use attack stance. The hand wants to be in hiding. Now, if you take a look at attack stance, it is a basic concentration power, and it does not say that there is a time limit. In other words, the hand could get into attack stance before initiative is rolled, and then they would already be in their attack stance for the first round of combat. Here's the way that I would play it. My heroes are going to come into a place that actually is swarming with members of the hand. I'm going to have either a passive or an active vigilance check against the stealth of the hand. If the hand wins the check, they get to go into attack stance before initiative is rolled, thereby doing additional damage. And now the attack stance power is actually really meaningful. They're going to do a coordinated jump at the enemies for melee attacks right away, splitting their attacks and trying to win combat as fast as possible. And this is when being supported by members of the hand attacking from range. The most interesting power that the hand has is snap shooting. This is a ranged attack. Now, a couple interesting things about it. Their agility is a +2. Their melee is a +1. So their melee damage only becomes equal to their agility damage if they go into their attack stance. So this idea of going into attack stance prior to combat, I think, is reinforced by the stat block. But we have an automatic amount of their best damage from ranged attack. And this is how combat with the hand can be really tactically interesting. What you want to do when you are running the hand is have some of them at distance, in concealment, and elevated positions. I've ran the hand from the tops of buildings. I've ran them from shooting at PCs from windows. I've had them hiding and attacking from range, and having them in a spaced out combat at elevation adds a whole new level of tactical ability to the map. And that's interesting because of the rank we're at. Rank 1 heroes do not have access to flying, and they are going to have to go into the teleportation power set at rank 1 if they want to teleport to the hand. In other words, rank 1 heroes in this game are the only ones who, by necessity, have mobility issues. They don't have increased speed, they can't fly, they're going to have trouble getting to interesting locations. So I want to set up a combat where the hand is in really tactically advantageous positions. And since we have a built-in way of attacking from range, this is absolutely a viable strategy. Now here's the downside of running the hand. They only have 10 hit points. These guys, I can tell you from experience, go down fast in combat. And that is kind of good. It means you can throw them at heroes in your first game at rank 1. It means that your heroes are going to have that cool experience of taking down the bad guy, but it also means that when you want this to be an interesting challenge, you have to throw a lot of them at your heroes. At rank 1, I found I have to run a ratio of 1.5 to 2 hand members for every PC. And that gets untenable very, very quickly, I have found. Not because the damage is too much, but because I'm running too many villains. So I have a personal bias as a game master. I don't like running too many enemies because it means that I'm taking too long at the table relative to my players. Now I'm pretty fast at running a basic attack from a really simple stat block like a member of the hand ninja. And so I can be pretty fast, but if I have 10 or 12 of these guys against a group of 4 or 5 player characters, then I'm still taking quite a bit of time. So the hand has this difficulty of just making combat really bloated, and that's not necessarily great. So you outlive the usefulness of the hand very quickly in a campaign. Can we make a combat with a hand more tactically interesting, even if I'm not running an inordinate number of these villains? Yes, we can. I'm going to give you 2 ideas. The first way is have them be doing some sort of a job that the heroes have interrupted. This is advice that gets thrown around for all different combats and all different game systems, but I think it's really good here. The hand ninja is supposed to be part of a criminal organization. They have a trait for connections to criminals, right? It's built into the stat block, which means they are doing some sort of a job that is part of a criminal enterprise. And so I want my heroes to try to disrupt the job, which is going to have some sort of a clock that's running on it. Maybe they're trying to assassinate an NPC. Maybe they're trying to steal a MacGuffin. I've had them running a kidnapping operation and trying to get away with a kidnapped victim. And now the fact that there are fewer of them, the fact that they are less powerful is a little bit less important because they're trying to do a job and my heroes need to prioritize their behavior. And that is an interesting combat. The second way to make the hand more interesting tactically is give them some sort of additional mobility. Two ideas that come to mind are jetpacks and some sort of a battle suit that allows them to fly. The downside of these types of machines is your players are going to want to use them, so kind of be ready for that. But if you can give some sort of tactical advantage to the hand, allow them to fly or get into interesting positions that are difficult for the players to match, your players are going to have to think really hard about how they're going to bring down these operatives. And they only have 10 hit points, so whatever they figure out, if they make it work once, that's probably the end of that particular villain. Building stories around the hand is actually really fun. These are just street thugs, effectively, who are members of a criminal operation. So this is a great rank 1 to rank 2 campaign arc. Have a criminal operation that is engaging in some behavior, and your heroes run into the hand while they are engaging in that criminal enterprise, whatever it happens to be. They interrupt some sort of a job, they find clues, they find a home base, they find more clues, and now they're investigating and discovering a world of illegality. Right at the moment that your heroes rank from 1 to 2, you can terminate this portion of the campaign by finding the boss, the one who's actually planning this. Now, you could run your own boss and simply reskin the stat block of the hand ninja to any street thug that you want, and it'll work great. These guys do not have to be ninjas. There's nothing about the stat block that indicates they have to be. And in fact, the fact that they have a gun kind of indicates that they're not necessarily ninjas at all, right? Of course, it doesn't have to be a gun. It can be any sort of a ranged weapon. But you have some sort of criminal enterprise, which means someone's the boss, and that's who they find right at rank 2. Now, if you're running the hand and running them as members of the hand, there is a stat block. Gorgon, or Tomishashido, is a stat block that you can grab. This is a rank 4 villain that is a nice chunky combat with like 90 points of health and 120 points of focus. I did exactly this in my campaign. My players were running into the hand at rank 1. When they got to rank 2, they faced off against some members of the hand and Gorgon all in one large combat, and it was pretty awesome. Now, one thing I want to mention about that, I do run the Tony's Workshop set of rules, which means that my players are gaining powers or ability points towards their next rank throughout their current one. So by the time they fought Gorgon, they had actually achieved a few things towards rank 3. And so you want to kind of look at the balance of your player characters with these stat blocks to see how many villains to throw at them. But if you are running the Tony's Workshop rules, the hand ninja is going to decline in power incredibly fast. These guys at mid rank 1 are just losing combats really quickly, and I have to start throwing higher level villains into the mix just to keep this thing interesting. I, at mid rank 1, had hand ninjas, and I put Bullseye into the combat, and all of a sudden it was a little bit more deadly of an encounter. Anyway, that's some thoughts on running the hand. If you've run these guys, what have been your thoughts on running them? Do they go down too easily? Can you make them a reasonable enemy? In the meantime, YouTube's made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them, and I'll see you next time. All right, peace.